One of the most important selections you can make when putting a car together like this is the rear axle assembly. And your first thought is, you want something strong that you're not going to break, and then you also want the right gear ratio. But what you got to consider is that to get everything you want, to get something that's strong with the right gear, with the right differential and the right size and the right brake options, it takes a lot of piecing stuff together. And if you find like a junkyard piece and you want to retrofit it, you're going to end up doing a lot of work rebuilding things. So a lot of times it's just easier to start fresh and get an entirely new unit, and that's what we did with this piece from Currie. And what we have here is their 9-inch, 9+ axle housing that's pre-made, the right width, it's all new, the right mounts for a GMA body, in our case the 66 GTO, comes with the bushings already installed, and a center section with the right gear ratio and axles in one package, all ready to rock. As soon as we got our housing shipped to us, we stripped off the oily coating that comes on them to keep them from rusting during shipping, and then we shot it black with the Eastwood ceramic chassis black, and then we were able to start assembling it. Take a look at the weld quality on this thing. I mean, it's artwork as opposed to what you're going to find on a junkyard piece. You'll never see welds like that coming from Ford. The top, you've got your upper control arm mounts for the GMA body, and then down here on the side is the lower control arm mount under there. And they come in the mail with a new set of studs already pressed in so that you don't have to worry about strip bolts or any nonsense like that. So what we're going to do now is just assemble this as much as you need to and throw it in the frame. Assembling these is pretty simple. You simply install the center section, run a little bead of RTV sealant on the housing and drop a gasket on it, and then lower your pre-assembled center section onto the housing. Okay, so before we drop the new center section in the housing, let's take a look at what we got. First of all, this has a 389 gear set already installed. It's all set up. You see the white gear pattern marking compound there. It's been tested. It's all ready to rock from Currie. Inside is a Detroit Locker True Track differential, which is going to give us a nice limited slip without all kinds of ratcheting, nonsense that you have in race cars, because we want this to be a good street driver. And then the case itself is a nodular iron housing. It's got the N cast in it back here. And then, new bearings and supports all the way through, so that this whole thing is basically all brand new. I mean, there's no Ford parts in this. So now we're going to drop this into the housing. And then run the nylock nuts that they supply down. Okay, I'm going to use a electric impact just to spin these down, but they all have to be torqued to 40 pounds or so, as specified by the instructions. That's another thing about all new stuff. You don't have to worry about any of the studs being, boogered up or threads being messed up or anything. It goes together pretty easily. And then the next step is to make sure you have your brake hardware looped around the axles, because the axles will go through that stuff, and then slide the axles in and bolt them in. Currie supplies new T-bolts to keep those axles retained and the axle retainer plates. The axles that we chose are 31 spline axles. They're a pretty heavy-duty unit for the street. Again, they're new. They're not twisted or bent, so we shouldn't have any vibration issues or anything like that. And then the axle bearings and axle ends, they call them Torino bearings. They're a large bearing diameter, which makes them strong. And then the housing ends will accept a variety of different brakes. In our case, we got a set of Willwood disc brakes, actually from Currie, that have an integral parking brake that's a drum brake style. So once we got it all bolted together, Scott and the guys on the crew here put it back into the car. So no more scrounging through junkyards and bead blasting housings and knocking off mounts and measuring and re-welding mounts and straightening housings and hoping that, you got your gear depth and pinion angle, pinion shims set properly and all that stuff. It's all done. And especially if you're building a car like this, where we don't have a lot of time and we know it's got to be done right the first time, it makes a lot more sense just to check out CurrieEnterprises.com and get it handled.